Hello, everyone. This is Alex Counts. I'm the Executive Director of the India Philanthropy Alliance, and I'm welcoming you to our November IPA virtual town hall, where we're going to be talking about monitoring, evaluation, learning, and related topics with a special guest speaker. I'm so pleased that you all have chose to join me. I want to tell you a little bit about this series for those of you less familiar with it before we go introduce our speaker and have her answer a few questions and then be available to all of you. This town hall series is, we don't advertise it publicly, unlike our webinars, which we do occasionally, but we do communicate it within the India Giving Day and IPA community. And we encourage all of you to invite people in your organizations, whether they be volunteers, donors, board members, employees, whether they be in India or the U.S. So it's invitation only, but widely within our community, invite who you wanted. Based on the suggestion of Manisha Bharti of Pratham USA, we developed a flyer this past for this one, and we'll hopefully be doing that in all future ones. So it makes it easy for you to invite people within your organization.
That's my knowledge. So with Tesla, we wanted to make electric cars compelling.
I see someone. There we go. Okay. So these town halls used to be occasional. They used to be done maybe 2-3 a year, but more recently we've started doing it almost every month. We now post them on YouTube, and I'll put in the chat. We just posted the one from last month, and you can take a look at that on our YouTube channel. And we are always looking for topics and speakers to have. I have a couple in the pipeline, but welcome ideas from all of you. Now, this month we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned, monitoring and evaluation. Some people call it monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Our speaker talks about monitoring, evaluation, learning, and accountability. And it's a topic that one of our founding board members, Bala Venkatachalam, from then the head of Pratham USA, said that we as a group should try to raise our game on this, all of IPA, and do it together, using common tools and a common framework if possible. Well, it's taken us a long time to rise to his challenge, but whether it's as a network or whether it's individual organizations, I think monitoring and evaluation and learning is one of the classic things that is important but not urgent, or rarely urgent. But if you can put some time and energy into it, it pays off long term, but doesn't often solve immediate problems. So I was looking for a speaker on this, and my friend Raul Shah, who I've collaborated with, and is in many ways a consultant based in India. He introduced me to Sharon, and so let me go ahead and I'm very grateful, Sharon, that you're with us. I'm now going to highlight you if I can have the dexterity to do that. I think I can. There we go. All right, hi there. And so and the format we're going to use after I introduce Sharon to you all, and some of you may know her very well, others of you perhaps not, is I'm going to ask her 2 questions, maybe a follow-up, but probably not. And then I'm going to open it up to all of you. So this is an opportunity for our community to talk to a noted expert, hopefully gain some value, and maybe gain an aspiration to raise your game in this whole area. So Sharon Weir is co-founded the Fourth Wheel in 2010. Congratulations on 15-year anniversary. She's led the design and execution of over 150, oh my gosh, research, evaluation, and communications projects for diverse clientele, including government departments, NGOs, corporates, impact investing firms. I'm sure they all have their challenges working with very different, but And she focuses on education, health, livelihoods, water, sanitation, women's empowerment, corporate sustainability, and she brings expertise in this whole monitoring, evaluation, learning, and accountability systems, development research, and implementation strategies for social sector projects. She has all sorts of qualifications that I won't run down them all, but I'll just say that we're so pleased to have you, Sharon, to give your time. Oh, more people to let in here. And lots of interest today, clearly. So welcome, and we're so pleased to have you with us. And you're muted. So okay.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. And these introductions are always extremely awkward, but thank you for that.
All right. Well, it's going to get more awkward still, because we love having you. And so the first question I'm going to put out there, and still more people coming in, is bearing in mind the diversity of our community, which I explained to you about when we were planning this, that there are people with very nascent monitoring evaluation systems, if that, and then there are other organizations here that are quite advanced, but probably the average is tending more towards the nascent, and partly because funders often don't understand the value of this and don't want to pay for this, but and sometimes it's hard, or maybe just perceived as hard. Bearing all that in mind, why do you think it is important for nonprofit organizations to invest more resources in monitoring and evaluation? And how can they ensure those resources are well spent? Or to put it another way, what is the business case for taking this seriously? And how do you do it well, regardless of how much resource you have to spend on it? Sharon.
Great. Yes, thank you very much, Alex, for that. And I'm going to jump right into the answer. I was trying to keep it really short, so I thought I'd use a couple of examples from the work I've done to really bring to light, why this is important. And I'd like to start with the first sort of essence of monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. It's not a game of proving a program works. It's about improving what works on the ground. With that in mind, I think a lot of times, the question, if you're sitting in a board, that you get is, so did this work? I think we have to move beyond the question of did it work? I think we have to ask questions like, why did it work? Which context did it work in? When did it work? So let me take an example of, put a very simple program run in India for schools, which wanted to look at ICT, which wanted to look at more digital teaching mechanisms in classrooms. And so, this donor put in 4 computers in every classroom or in every school for that matter, and said, let's set up 4 computers of a lab in a school. Normally you would have a report which says, students started learning, so many students kind of use the computer. But it's not about that, It's about what we found out from that study was, one, context matters. So you might put 4 computers for a school which has 100 students, and you might put 4 computers for a school which has 1,000 students. So monitoring and evaluation helps you understand the context. So we looked at all the different kinds of schools, and we could see that there are some which need more resource, which in this case, computers. Monitoring and evaluation helps us really understand what works, not just where, but why. So we realized that just putting computers in place didn't really give us the results of, okay, they worked on computers, but teachers didn't have the skills. So it really makes us focus on the results. It's not about showcasing, a picture which says all schools got the 4 computers. It's about looking at the results. Now, the results that we set out for this project was that students learn through digital tools, but at the end of the day, it improves their learning outcomes. And from this evaluation, we realized maybe it achieved digital access, but learning outcomes, not really, because you need a plus, plus, and plus for this to really work. So, that's the second part of, really having results front and center. Other than that, I think it's about very importantly learning, learning in terms of we realized so many schools didn't have electricity. So we learned that you got to choose schools which actually have electricity, not just because they're on a map, which you can see and then they look great in a report. I have so much more to say, and I'll just stop with one more. All of this really makes us look at our programs or our investments or our funding in not a myopic way of one thing is going to solve the world's problems. It helps us to look at a broader perspective of change that most of our social investments or programs are sort of trying to solve. So it looked not just at, a computer and a student. It looked at the context of the school, the electricity, the teacher capacities, and all of that. And I think that's the beauty of, not looking at evaluation as an audit or not looking at it as M&E, but looking at it as like learning, accountability, and being able to do so much more or get more bang for your buck, if that's the right sort of phrase to use, when you start looking at it very strategically. So I'll stop here.
Thank you. I come from, I've been involved with India and South Asia since almost 40 years, but I spent the first couple decades of that involved in the microfinance field. And I think we got stuck in that field in number one, using these tools to prove rather than improve. Does it work or does it not work? And that it became kind of political. And then the second thing we got stuck with is that the only valid way to evaluate something is through a very expensive and long-lasting RCT study. And anything short of that wasn't even worth doing. And so that really harmed us, despite lots of money being invested in that. And I hope that you can help our community get beyond that in their varied approaches to social change that go well beyond any individual issue. Bearing that in mind, let me ask you the second question before I open it up to the audience. What do you think are some of the most exciting and important new trends in monitoring and evaluation and innovations? Things that if you're not following the literature, you're not as immersed in it as you are, you might have missed opportunities to get into this and draw value from these efforts with perhaps using technology or new ideas or maybe old ideas resuscitated from and so what's out there that's working that might have people missed, whether it's in India or ideas from outside of India that could be applied in India. So back to you, Sharon.
Sure. I think I can't not respond to your point of, RCTs or causal experiments or nothing. So let me take that one for just a minute. I think, and again, it probably speaks and segues well into the trends that we see in evaluation today. But I think the idea is not about rigor. And I think evaluation should not just be looked at what is the right method. I think the question should be, what is the decision I want to take? Do I want to take a decision on, knowing where we stand today? Then probably you don't need an RCT. An example, do I want to know if my interventions are relevant in the context? And I love one of these examples. We went to construction sites and, we did these participatory, very simple sort of group discussions, and we use these tools where we got different groups from different communities who live in those construction sites to tell us what have been the impact of the water and toilet interventions we did for their living conditions. And in these participatory exercises that we did, we realized one of their biggest issues in their living conditions is to just have fumigation drives because mosquitoes is a huge issue. So I wouldn't need an RCT to go on for 3 years to tell me that. The decision I needed or the judgment I needed to make was what I'm spending my money on. Is it relevant to the community? So again, this is something I can talk to for hours, and that's where we are today, to be honest. I think people are recognizing, and it was very interesting for a very large scale study that we did. We asked NGOs in India to define what social impact means for them. What's the change they want to see? And we then kind of put that against the current methods that exist, whether it's a baseline, end line, pre-post, causal. are they able to capture that change? We realized 90% of the organizations no longer talk about service delivery. They no longer say we want to go and give an after school class to a girl so that she completes education. The sector is now talking about systems change, systems adaptation. So they don't want to just see what happened to the girl. They want to also see what kind of sort of interventions or what have they done for the ecosystem and the space. And so now evaluation is no longer just looking at, service delivery and rubrics which say yes, yes, yes. They're looking at what has happened to the larger ecosystem. Very complex to do. But one, I'm going to start with the strategy. So no longer are we talking just intervention. We are talking about systems level change and how can you use research, evaluation, and learning to look at this bigger picture. That's the first huge shift we've had since Esther Duflo won the Nobel Prize to where we are today. Other than that, I think beautifully, and I hope this gets stronger and more organizations understand this. You don't need to collect 50 data on 50 things when 5 will do. So we're taking this more approach to being very strategic and a lean indicator approach. Otherwise, now everyone's drowning in data and they don't know what to do with it. So I think that's another perspective on, lean indicators. What really matters to you? Why are you collecting, data? Other than that, you did mention technology. I think we've always had technology, but it's always been an expensive man's game or an expensive woman's game. I think now technology is really being adopted, is low cost, is easy, is simple. It's not always about cost, it's about capability and capacity. So I think tech has become more mainstream. Specifically to call out what tech is definitely digital data collection in low resource, less connected areas. Following from from lean indicators, dashboards have become great. And not just because it's pretty to look at, it's because you don't need to go back to your 5 years of reports to tell a story. You can, if done well, you can actually be able to trace change over time, and that's what we should be doing. So I think dashboards, AI is here to stay. There is so much on AI, not just, in terms of, and obviously must be addressed with caution, but it's not just about analyzing your data from actually conceptualizing your models to collecting data to helping teams to, learn how to do things. So I think AI is cross-cutting and has really been amazing in our work. And I think this whole idea that monitoring, and you started with it, is not urgent. I think the recognition that it cuts across the organization. It helps you communicate better. It helps you plan better. It helps your teams do their work better, get recognition for the, the good that they do because you have data to say that. So I think this cross-functional use of evaluation, not just being, a standalone function or an, oh my God, I have to do this now sort of approach to it. I think it's definitely become a bit more, people understand the value of it. And I have one more, so I'm going to take that one as well. I think what you spoke of, this deductive top-down approach that I want to test whether this works. We are moving into more, more deductive approaches of participation, of taking back results to communities, of context-specific, smaller studies, dipstick studies, which again is a huge, step forward to evaluation becoming a very technical. I hope I've not gone too technical, but becoming a very technical sort of space that no one really wants to touch. But I hope that kind of puts some perspectives out. And I'd love to hear, the kind of challenges you'll face. Who do you have to convince, and on what grounds? And yes, anything operational that I could help with.
I want to ask a quick follow-up that probably anticipates questions that would come in one form or another. And so, my younger brother, who's not in this field, but is kind of a futurist, he said something to me about AI, and I admit to being behind the curve on uses of AI. But I'm at least aware of it, the kind of some of the power. And he said something to me. He said, actually said it on a podcast that he was on. He said, AI may be able to allow us in the future to actually communicate with whales. Like it may allow us to understand how whales communicate and then translate English or any other language into a language that and like I was like, oh my God, like that's like, but it takes that kind of a computing power. It's theoretically possible, and you just let the AI. And I'm wondering if you could, if there's some specific example you could give of AI in the monitoring evaluation context, something that is now possible or possible much cheaper to do, or if it's something that you've done practically, or maybe some futuristic thing that may be possible soon. But can you just go beyond that? This could be a powerful tool to kind of how might it really work? How has it worked?
Sure. So I think one, it can really get you context. I mean, not context, because if you're working in a rural Pune or a rural Nandurbar, you do need to understand context to write the correct indicators. Um, so one is, if you're looking at a particular theme, and I'd love to hear, a couple of organizations and what they do, but say you're working on a multi-dimensional, program where you're working on health, education, livelihoods, etc., for a particular region, and you want to get the right indicators for that region, right? Usually you need an expert to be able to populate that for you. What relates to what? I think with AI, within a click of a button, you can at least get your mind map. And then of course you have to. I mean, I you can't say that, okay, my AI throw an indicator. So, in a very simple, working with my teams, for example, AI has done that. They are able to conceptualize, which probably an expert would be need to brought in. So it's made that cheaper. Also, for you think of donor organizations, you think of teams working on the ground and they want to tell their story. So that's one. Two is just simple language. My field teams are my biggest asset when they're on the ground. Earlier, they would give me these really, broken English, qualitative notes, uh, which didn't really make sense. I couldn't compare a Punjab to a Maharashtra to a Gujarat. Now they are all able to bring together a coherent sense of data to my teams, and that has again has upskilled them so much. So I think even communication in that the stories from ground up are no longer language bound. You can do simple
Mm.
translations, which are obviously then vetted by, people who are looking at notes, clarified. It's not all AI. I think also, like, one of my favorites is I really feel, or I've really started questioning the idea of reports. What do
Mm.
reports really do for us? Every year we make the same, sometimes they look the same. Now, you have bots where you've put your data into a report, or your 3 years data into a report. And on WhatsApp, if you're sitting in a board meeting, or if I need to connect with, a couple of other funders who have worked on similar topic, I can use that bot and say, can you tell me about this study that I did in 2020 for my data? And what did it say? Can you tell me these 5 points? It's pulling up results in real time that was never possible before. And while I'm talking, I can think of so many, but I'll stop here. And I
Okay.
would love to also hear if there are any specific, like qualitative data or any concerns that when you all do work, you want to see how AI fits in. I hope I can, shed some light on that.
Very good. Well, we try to leave at least half of the time for people to hear their attendees in our community to ask questions, engage in a dialogue with you. And so we're going to meet that standard, and the floor is open. And by the way, no question is too basic. If your question is, what is the difference between monitoring and evaluation? Ask that. If you have an advanced question, because that's where you're at, we would also welcome that. So the whole range, and the floor is open.
I think Dipali has some which I can probably get into from the chat.
Oh, okay. Why don't you do that? And
Yeah.
I see someone, but go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah. Thanks,
Mm.
Sharon.
Oh,
So I have a few more questions, but we can take it up first this because we always deal with this. Now, what we should not do? There are so many things coming up. So what are the things that we should abandon? Now, don't go there. That is not going to make any use or sense for the future. So what are those practices, if you can enlighten on that?
I don't want to be too controversial, but I think I'll start with a simple one, paper pen. Just
Oh,
abandon it. I
yeah.
mean, it's 2025 and it just is, it's, yeah, it should not be there. It's too archaic. And so I think I'll start with that one. Let me start easy, but yeah.
okay.
Anything else that you want to add apart from paper and pen?
I think, and also what I said before, right? Really question, like for every indicator or for every question you ask, why are you asking that? If there's an 80% who's saying yes, or if there's an 80% who's saying no, what are you going to do with that information? What decision are you going to make? How does it
Mm,
influence your action or your program? I think that also, we tend to, and for all of you who know Indian context, for us, more is more. So, if you're going in field, why don't you ask these five more
yeah.
questions, ये भी पूछ लो, ये भी पूछ लो, add this, ये भी, why not ask this also? So I think that kind of has a lot of issues attached to it because then you're just swimming in data and sometimes because you're asking 100 questions, you miss out on the important ones. So maybe those two.
Very good.
The lead
Maybe
indicator.
we'll
Thank you.
come back to you
Yeah.
if you have more. But Sarah Berry, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I think a very important aspect of monitoring and evaluation is to gauge the qualitative impact. And you just mentioned the increasing role of AI in today's time and age. Do you feel that AI, as far as documenting qualitative impact, will substitute the human component completely? In the sense that do you feel the emotions that we can bring into a narrative could be completely substituted by AI as far as qualitative impact is concerned?
100% no. I just actually last week did a training on a qualitative analysis called Deduce. And so, within that software, you have to attach transcripts. And those transcripts need to be, sort of have the same format. So if I'm getting interviews done from Punjab or Gujarat or, whatever, I'm just using AI to put it in a certain format, but the quotes, the colloquial sort of terminology, all of that remains in, it maintains that essence. Even if we are using qualitative software, at the end of the day, the software, you're still looking at each line and coding, putting them into relevant themes, etc. All AI, and I said this in that training as well, all AI can do is once you have formed a story, you understand the nuance and the context, it can help you make it prettier. But most people, and I've seen this happen a lot, which is why that training was done, people are getting interviews and pasting them in Chat GPT and, saying these are the case studies. And you will see from context to context, every case study looks the same. So I do not think AI helps you think. Whatever you've thought, AI helps you make it prettier. That's the way I put it. It's just about, presentation. That's where you use it. But nuance, it cannot substitute humans. And I work with it day in and a day out, and it's atrocious if you just rely on AI.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you, Alex.
Very good. Let's go to Niti Saxena.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Sharon. I think I'll inch a little away from asking a question, but like to make a comment if that's permitted.
Please.
Sharon, I couldn't agree more, and this is why I couldn't hold back this comment. I represent SM Sehgal Foundation, which is a grassroots interventionist organization in India. We are 26 years old, and I can confidently say that about 20 years of our existence, we have held on to monitoring and evaluation as a long-standing commitment to evaluating, that the work that we are doing on the ground. Because 6 years into our existence, we realized that if we will not evaluate what is working and what is not working. So I'm not afraid to say that we have dropped programs, we have dropped interventions altogether because we found that they were not working. And even, 26 years down the line, over time, we have evolved into also receiving a lot of corporate social responsibility funding. But there are times when partners do not warm up to the idea of doing a monitoring and evaluation study to see what's working, what's not working, how the project is faring out. But I can say that Sehgal Foundation, because of its commitment towards monitoring and evaluation, we have ensured that even if the partners are not funding, we continue to evaluate our interventions on the ground, because we feel that, how do we give back to the communities is to ensure that things are sustainable and things are needed. And I feel that just one small point that I'd also like to make here is that for us, monitoring and evaluation works on the first in and last out rule. So we use the philo rule here, where through the project designing, through the project life cycle, research is the first one to go in on the ground, and research is the last one to go out. So just wanted to make this comment. Thank you so much. Thank you,
I'm
Alex.
Thanks so much, Niti. I'm actually so glad you bring this up because this is one of like my life's missions, if I can say it. I want to give again a couple of examples. So MEL is not, or monitoring evaluation. I'm just going to call it MEL for everyone. It's not an afterthought, and it's not external to your program design. So I recommend to every organization here and in general is to build in meal systems into your program design. What do I mean by that? Now, a lot of times, we go do our program and then we come back, we ask our communities questions, we come back, and who are those results being shown to? Our board. We never take back the results to the community and say, can you tell me why this indicator is not moving up? So when the board asks us that question, we really don't have an answer because we didn't ask the right person that question. So that's one example. Another example is like, we did a lot of teacher capacity building programs. And what we did was, as part of their training or as part of when they were oriented, we built in tools which was also part of their orientation, but was not an external baseline or an external end line. It was very core to the operations. And for that, we need to take a little bit of a shift in thinking that meal teams are different and program teams are different. I say evaluation is everyone's sort of job. And last point, our now the life's mission, coming back to it, I think our sort of catchphrase now is meal built in, not a bolt on. Where so then it doesn't become like this additional money you want to ask for. And a lot of my clients have had successes when we are not saying that this is our program and then we need 10% budget to fund M&E. We say this is our program with these tools, systems, and processes built, which will also talk about results. So it's the positioning of the concept that if you position it as external and can do, then it's going to be treated like that. But if you position it as, say, it is integral to how we work and how we want to do things, it becomes a very different conversation. But yeah, but thank you for that, Niti. I mean, I didn't know how to bring it in here, but thank you for bringing it.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more. And you're absolutely right that while we do internal evaluations, we must, at the foundation also, we ensure that we also bring in external evaluators to keep evaluating and bring in that third person's perspective. That is equally important. So thank you for highlighting that. Thank you.
So thank you. I was happy to see that some people who've really been thinking about this and working on it for years at a very sophisticated level joined here, along with people who this is a new concept, and not seeing any immediate questions. I'll indulge myself and the group in one that I have. Let me play out a scenario for you, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but imagine that I come to you and I say, Sharon, my board just met a week ago and basically said that they've determined that on monitoring, evaluation, and learning, our organization, which say works in livelihoods or education or healthcare or something like that, one of these many fields that you've worked in, that on monitoring it, we're basically we're either never really got anything going seriously, or we kind of got going in the wrong direction and we need to kind of go back to square one. And so the board asks me, well, Alex, design a plan so we can just kind of get in 12 months, get in the ball game. What kind of budget do you need? What kind of team do you need? What kind of technology? What's the plan? Where will we be in a year that isn't too ambitious, but isn't also too modest in its scope? And again, I'm not telling you the size of our organization or anything, but how would you approach that where an organization that has just been really missing in action on this, someone has a charge to start moving forward, but it's almost like, where do I start?
Yeah, I mean, no, you're not putting me on the spot. This is what we do. So I think regardless of the size, whether you're 100 or whether you're 10, at the end of the day, all levels of your organization, the first step would be to align on what we want to achieve. So the first, and again, this is coming from, if you go and ask the founder or the director of an NGO or a CSR or whatever, why do you do these programs? They will have this very top, very good, very well articulated mission. You ask management, it comes down to, because we want our communities happy. And, it's kind of, if you go back to implementation teams, they'll be like, we just need to do, our jobs. So I think one of the first problems with starting evaluation is not having a synchronized understanding within your own teams as to why you do what you do. So the first step is and this could look in the form of a theory of change. Again, this was my controversial one, Dipali. I'm not sure if that helps. But the first thing we would do is, what are your results? What are the 4 things you want to achieve? After that, we break those concepts down into indicators. How are you going to measure this? Over what time? So the first part is all about getting your strategy right. Doesn't matter how much money you have or how many people you have. It's strategy. The second part is about once you have your strategy and you have a shared understanding, which is so important within different cadres of your organization, it's then about building the system. Now, the system will be, what does it conventionally look like? A tool or the tools, right? So you have your indicators, you know what you want to measure. We will then go into building the right tools of the right size, of the right length, translated into the people you're actually going to be talking to. Then you will build your data ethics, right? How do you collect the data not using paper pen? So you build your tools, then you build your data collection systems, and then you build an analysis plan, because we already have your strategy, but your data is coming in. How are you going to analyze it? What you're going to look at? And across all of this, you are not going to try to hire someone new and external to come in. We are the facilitators. We are trying to help your teams anyway, what they do brilliantly, just make sense of it from how do I say, from that technical standpoint. So I think that's how we would go about it, from strategy to building the system to getting the decision-making tool, the decision-making process correct, right? So then that loop has to feed in. And for all of this to happen, you can't do it without capacitating your teams. And that's the core piece of this working. So yeah, I hope that answers, and it's not too simplistic.
Yeah. I'm struck by some of these clever phrases that you have, whether you've borrowed them or invented them, the built in, not a bolt on. I think some of these phrases might actually help you all educate your stakeholders, because they're very catchy, and they really communicate essential truths, I think, in a clever and memorable way. So thank you for those. I've been taking a lot of notes here. The floor is open. And if not, I have some other questions, but go ahead and yes. Did you want to add something? Was someone wanting to get in? I
think Maya's been raising her hand.
Oh, has she? Maya, did you want to get in?
Yes, I mean, my
Great.
question is very basic. We were starting to build actually, a database because we have projects all over. We're a small organization, but we are spread wide and thin. So wide, not thin. So isn't the micro necessary to have the micro data to get to the macro to see what are the systems changes? So, I think we will have to have a conversation outside of this to get to, to learn from you and to maybe work with you on that. But just want to know, shouldn't we be first collecting the micro and then my macro should fall through from it, right? It should be the result.
Could you just give me some perspective on what you mean by micro? Like what
So
data do
like,
you? Yeah.
by each student, by each beneficiary,
Mm-hmm.
where they are, what they're doing, and then, come up with, okay, children at this level learned this and did this, then we can come up with our systems change and which part of our program is working, which needs to be strengthened and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, so there are a couple of responses to this. One is that what we have to look at indicators which are comparable on a larger context. So, in simple terms, benchmarking. Now, a lot of times, if we are looking at, say, certain learning levels, or then you do want to benchmark it to, say, the block, district, state, national, whatever level of data you have. What tends to happen is we don't take that bigger picture. We, in our little bubble, make our own indicators, make our own tools. So when we have the data, we can't compare because that data has been collected differently. So I'm coming to a little bit of that point, but I'm going to give an example. We wanted to look at how menstruation, what are the things that girls can't do when they are menstruating? Just an example, right? So this organization came up with, okay, percentage of girls who face restrictions during menstruation. We saw there was already a national level indicator which said percentage of girls who cannot do religious activities, percentage of girls who are not able to go to school. They broke those indicators down. Now, if we would have gone with question one, right, we would have got 90% face restrictions, but we would not have, first of all, been able to compare it or break down that concept of where can I take action. So that's one. You do need your micro level data, but it needs to be juxtaposed or compared to another context. Having said that, when I'm talking about systems change, I'm not talking about few kids, larger kids. I'm saying it's not just the kids' access to learning materials or teachers. It's about parental support. It's about government, aid. It's about community conception. So that's what I mean. That you can't just go and talk to a student and say, why did you fail this class? You have to look
Right.
at the bigger picture. So those are, probably, yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next, but I think we will have to have a conversation. I'll get your contact from Alex and we can, have a private, thank you.
Good. And
It's an excellent session. Really appreciate it.
I hope Maya that if you have insights that come out of your work with Sharon, whatever it evolves, share back with the group. Maybe in a year you both can come back and share what you've learned together.
Yes.
So in the spirit of IPA, so let's go back to Deepali. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And thank you for this great conversation and all of you. It's great to learn from everybody. Given Sharon that you're so much experience and M&A is something that always attracts me. So from your, what is that one evaluation finding that surprised you or forced you to change the business strategy or a model for a CSR program? And how did that shift happen? If you can just share your story, that will add more.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite ones is, or when I was just bought in and I said, I don't think I want to do anything else in my life, is probably, I started my journey with the Gujarat government as a development researcher. That's my background through and through, actually. And we were doing this evaluation for a huge donor who had been doing this, who had been giving booklets to women in
Okay.
rural Rajasthan on maternal and postnatal and neonatal childcare for
Oh, lovely.
years. And this is very, very early on in my career. And when we were trying to see, what to improve in the books, not even if the books work, we were trying to see what the content could look
Mm.
like, right? Because now it's been done for so many years and it's time to look at, the new content. And we realized, and I personally must have visited about 300 households, 90% of them kept the books as if they are the most precious books and had never read them. Uh, why? Because they couldn't read. So for years, we were giving these beautiful looking books. And so I went back to the client and I said, I'm shocked. Like what's been happening? And they said, "Oh no, no, you've got it wrong. It's big. Even if they can't read, the pictures will help them understand how to take care of themselves and their children." At that time, I had the good fortune to work with a French and a German, now very good friends of mine, who we were all starting out our careers together. And I said, "Okay, you guys can't read Hindi, and here are these books. Tell me what you think." And they couldn't make no sense about it. We just laughed and laughed and laughed about it. And so the next
Mm-hmm.
time when I went back to them and I said, it's a huge assumption you have that people can understand. And these people are a bit more educated, much, much more educated, and they can't make sense of these pictures. Who's drawn these pictures? Oh, yes, someone sitting in Canada. Okay. So even if you would have got someone to get that context in, and that for me was a big one. Look at the amount of resources, the scale to which it was, and the urgency of the issue. It's about women just delivering their kids and having to take care of their babies, and they know nothing. And that's what we've been spending money on, and that's the impact we've had. So this is more of an international donor story. CSR is, I don't know, just another ball game altogether. But for me, this is what made me really say that, context.
Yeah, but that's very eye-opening, right? It's such a small thing, but nobody, and that MEL that you said, it's thank you for sharing that story. How this evidence has led to the strategy change. Thank you. I have one more. Can I ask, Alex?
Sorry, I need to just, because I think it ended on a very sad story. So I just want to say the positive of it. I think we
Mhm.
also realized that women spend maximum time, and in India, you have to spend a mandatory 2 days, and then, So I think what we did then was we started putting in local language, small videos within the institutes itself. So, you're sitting around and you don't really have much to do in the first couple of hours and things like that. So we did change the comms medium from written and visual to something which was more local, contextual, and new age media. So just wanted to say that there was something done with that study, and it was not all just the bad
I'm
world.
sure because we are talking MEL, so obviously it must be learned and taken back to put it
Exactly.
into
So I wanted to
action.
end with
Yeah,
that.
it's not only evaluation, it's learning. So
I,
can I ask
yeah,
one more question?
I don't see another hand up. But maybe if it's maybe you can make it quick. But go ahead.
Yeah, quick. Just then, because ML have, I've seen, observed in my whatever stint I have in my social sector, seen the resistance, from people. Now, when such thing come on your way, what is the effective way of overcoming or making people aware about that fact, even if it's your own team, because there is a resistance.
I think, like I mentioned before, right? It's not this or that. It's not optional.
It's not.
It's
Yeah.
how you program. It's how you design. It's how you
Yeah.
put across that my, like, what we heard from Sehgal Foundation from Neeti. I think it's about how you position
Perspective.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's not an option. I know it sounds
Mhm.
very easy, and in real world, you really have to take that. But I think it's about how you position it.
Yeah, that's right. But if we are already having a program and that's not built in, then how we can build in basically? But we can discuss this. I think there is time crunch also. But thank you, Alex and the team, and Sharon, for entertaining my questions and
Very
lovely
good.
conversation.
Very good. Okay, let's see. We have a question from Varsha.
Yeah, hi, hello everyone. So yeah, this session is very insightful and I'm really sorry to keep my video off. So I'm Varsha and I'm currently working in monitoring and evaluation at Ekadam Foundation India, and our organization has been working for past 5 years to educate children with visual impairment in rural areas, especially from economically weaker section. So I have a very scenario specific question, Sharon, that how can monitoring and evaluation frameworks be adopted for home-based or community-based education models, and especially where children are geographically scattered and learning is highly personalized.
Sure. So I think when you are saying that, you mean one is that the program is too spread out to have large sample sizes. Is that what you are asking?
Yes, the sample size is also very large, and
Is
also
very
currently, yeah, so currently the method that we are using to do monitoring and evaluation is that we're relying too much on social media apps like WhatsApp to collect the data, the information through video. So we cannot rely on the authenticity of the videos that we're receiving from our field educators. So, is there a specific framework that how can we deal with the authenticity, not just the authenticity, but also the ethical side of collecting this data?
Sure. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, I really need to understand the model, but let me think of it like this. At the end of the day, we are trying to, like, going back to my thing, we're trying to say that we have multiple facilitators in the community, and everyone's sending me videos, but they all don't look the same, right? Everyone, and I have faced this myself, where if I have worked with, say, 20 different skill trainers, and I ask them, what do you do with what do you want to achieve with youth, right? Someone will say they
Yeah.
need to become independent. Someone will say they need to gain a job. Someone will say they
Yeah.
need to have soft skills, right? So I think this is going back to my point of, do we all have the same understanding of what these videos need to capture? That's the first big job done, because then you're bringing standardization as to how to understand and how to report on data. The other thing, and I think this is a very common, challenge, and not just saying organizations don't want to do it, I'm saying it's very complex, is
Yeah.
about, getting teams to not think of it as something they have to do, but getting teams to understand how to do it, to capacitate the teams, right?
Yes.
That why are you sending these videos? What am I going to, and then taking that data back and saying, all of you send these videos. I could only use 5 of them because this is what I made sense of. So if it makes sense to you, I don't think you need a framework right now, because you know why you're doing what you're doing. I think you need a structured approach of what data, how to collect, how to analyze, and how to report back, and then use for decision making. So the first approach I would take is to really study the system that is at play, and not the framework, because framework is the easy job. It's the change management within organizations. It's getting people to buy in. A lot of people think this
Mhm.
is extra work, and when you start using things like take a video, send, they're just doing it because it's a KPI. They're not doing it because they're seeing results of how it's helping them.
Yes.
I
So
hope that
basically,
answers your question.
yeah. So basically, the approach that you're saying that we should have is we should share our impact with the educators as well, so they are more involved in the process.
We should set up a standardized system as to what we want to look at, what indicators, what should they look at in a video, how should they be taking those videos, then analyzing it, showing them back what they have collected, and then yes, taking steps. So yes, making it simple for people to do this rather than just piling it on and saying, now go figure. I don't think we
Yeah.
support, and I just made a comic actually, which said, like bags of strategy, tools, data, everything, and then just go up that hill because I'm telling you to go.
Yeah.
Rather than supporting. So I think asking for something without support is a bit unfair, and that comes from funder to grantee, from management to from leadership to management, from management to, it has to trickle down at every layer, that if you want someone to do something, then support that journey.
Sure.
So,
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was helpful.
so I'm going to just ask one final question, and as opposed to just a long-winded thank you, which you definitely deserve. But at our recent philanthropy summit that we did with in diaspora, which hopefully you can join us for next year, we had a debate, and it was one of the most energizing sessions, because in my experience, as you get into any field, whether it's monitoring, evaluation, philanthropy, writing, violin, whatever, it's like, as you learn more and more and you hang out with people that know a lot like you do, 80% of the things you all agree on. They're just known best practices, and you're just trying to, but then there's the 20% or maybe 10% where actually people with great expertise, they actually disagree. They actually have a different view. And I'm wondering if there is one topic that that maybe someone with equal skills to yours, you and that other person might disagree. There are active debates within your field that if someone here contracted someone else, they might have a different view on that subject than you. And if you could help us in the minute or two or three we have left to then help us navigate that. In the monitoring evaluation field, there are two schools of thought. I subscribe to one, but there are thoughtful people who subscribe to the other, and you'll have to make your own decisions, but this is where I've landed. Are there any active debates that you can help us as lay people understand that are in the field that you're an expert in?
Yes, now I think I can do my controversial one, and this is it. I think theory of change. So I teach a lot of theory of change courses. I recommend it, but the way theory of change is done is a big problem. People say more complexity, the better a theory of change. I say the least complexity, the more action you can take. So that's one. Theory of change, log frames. Again, people use log frames and call them theory of change. And so that's a huge one. And the second is this whole idea, and this is my controversial one. RCTs are the best. They're the gold standard. I feel that is so problematic. So I'm from the other school of thought that says it needs to be contextual, grounded. I'm more from the Michael Quinn pattern, the school of thought of utilization focused evaluation. Robert Chambers is my hero who talks about participatory evaluation. So I think there are two, and you could also kind of, there's a right wing thought of, top down RCTs, and then there's probably left wing. I don't know if that's the correct appropriation. And that's of, grounded. You can't take these scientific approaches and apply them everywhere. It's too expensive. It's not important. So yeah, that one. But I would say this in any forum, but that's how it is. And that's the school of thought that I come from.
Well, good. Well, I think you might enjoy some of my writings about RCTs that go back 10, 15 years, but I'll spare you and the group there for now, and just simply say we're so grateful that you've joined us, grateful for the work that you've done to help so many in the social sector do better, learn more, and we look forward to having you back and considering you a friend of the India Philanthropy Alliance and our India Giving Day community. Thank you so much, Sharon.
It's been a pleasure and hope to connect with all of you. And yes, happy to always be back. Thank you, everyone.
Well.